Welcome back to Normie Nerdom, everybody. I am Red Strider, and you know what? Sometimes capitalism can be really amazing. And by sometimes, I mean all the time. Because as it turns out, all you have to do to gain support, and in turn gain a lot of money, is to be loyal to your customer. Is to deliver what you said you're going to deliver, to promise not to piss them off, and promise also to deliver a good product. Well, as you can probably see by my merch here, Rippaverse Comics by Eric July has now reached $1 million in pre-orders within 48 hours of launch. 2 days. With one of those days being full of site-wide outages because his fans and the people like me flooded the Rippaverse.com website and overwhelmed the servers to such an extent that it was down for hours. It wasn't until I think around noon or at least 1 p.m. where I was able to put in my pre-order. So let's take a look here. All right, so bounding into comics reports. Oop, my bad. Eric July launches another smashing success for the Rippaverse with ISOM number 2, nearly 1 million sold in 48 hours, which it's blown past the 1 million, by the way, already. Last year, Eric July made history with the launch of his comic, ISOM number 1, which not only made over 3.7 million in sales with more pre-orders than most Marvel and DC comics sell, but the campaign also drew media attention from the likes of Glenn Beck and Fox News. Now, in case you didn't know, Eric July is a frequent, you could say, guest contributor on Glenn Beck's The Blaze TV, and he's actually pretty awesome. If you ever catch his appearances on the news and Why It Matters, definitely look that up. He is a powerhouse. And the article continues. July's detractors and fans have both been wondering whether the second installment in the new superhero universe, dubbed Rippaverse, would be as successful. After the first 48 hours, which raised nearly $1 million, which we're well past $1 million now, we have an answer. Rippaverse fans are here to stay. Maybe even more astounding is that ISOM number 2's campaign has been plagued by an unresponsive website that has been down at times. At times, it's been the entire morning, to all of Monday morning, and up until I think just today, where the site is still pretty sluggish. It's 2 days later. That was on a Monday, and it's now a Wednesday. It's still showing some sluggishness, but I mean, it's working. Which July's team said they are working dutifully on to trying to fix it. Okay, that's a little weird wording there, BIC. Come on, y'all. It appears as if there is too much traffic for the website to handle, generated by the excitement of Rippaverse readers. Nevertheless, it still raised $960,067. Now let's look at what what we're at right now. Let's go over to Rippaverse.com, which I just happened to open up here. I saw number 2. What are we at now? $1,085,000 of a campaign order goal of $350,000, and it ends at the end of August. What in the world? And the fulfillment starts at the end of July. How cool is that? Let's read on. Take a look at that artwork, man. That's pretty gnarly. I can't wait to read about this. Like, this looks like he's descended into hell itself to beat up demons. Sounds good to me. ISOM number 1 received near universal praise for the book, both with readers enjoying the art and the world in which was being built by July and his team. When it was announced earlier in the month that legendary comic writer Chuck Dixon will be joining the Rippaverse for a team book called Alpha Corp, fans also rejoiced at the prospect of a new superhero stories from a man long blacklisted by mainstream companies. Clever. Yes, it gives a little sample here. The ISOM number 2 campaign, which features a storyline by Eric July, artwork by Cliff Richards, colors by Gabe Al-Taib, and letters by Eric Weathers, gives readers a reminder of the story so far, leading up to ISOM number 2 with the synopsis. The story so far: Avery Stillman is thrown into a world he thought he was behind him when he hung up his suit and must decide if wearing the mantle again is the best course of action. The quote continues. In issue 1, Avery's sister, Altona, calls Avery to have him investigate the disappearance of a young woman who was last seen with former friend Darren Fontano. The synopsis continues. But Darren has changed since he was hanging out with Avery when they were young. Instead of the friend he knew, Darren has become a cold-blooded shot caller and one of the most feared men in the city. Get a little sample of the originalized artwork there. That had made the smart decision of including a watermark there. The quote continues, the visit returns into one of the longest days in Avery's life. Around these parts, people call special beings accepts. And unfortunately for Avery, he has the luxury of running into some of them. The Alpha Core and Yaira have their own set of conflicts, while the living tank known as Santuan reappeared to add more difficulty to Avery's life, it reminds. The synopsis continues, questioning what are the consequences of Avery's choices in Part 1, who will come to his aid. Grab ISOM number 2, ill-advised Part 2, and find out for yourself. Well, I certainly intend to find out for myself, and I'm actually very, very excited in a way that I have not been about a comic book for a very long time, if at all, if ever, actually. And Rippaverse, actually, it seems like, to me, my ideal content-creating company. Absolutely. Because let's take a look. Let's take a look at the code of ethics here, just to remind people the level of care that this man seems to have for his customers and for his product. All right, just a reminder. The Rippaverse Code of Ethics. Respect the customer. Ooh, imagine that. A modern content-creating company, a comic company, a superhero book company that doesn't feel like it's entitled to your hard-earned money. We want you invested in this brand and everything that comes from it. Rippaverse Comics is not entitled to your money, and we must earn your support. Oh, take notes, Marvel. It's on us as the creators to produce something that you will find of value and can remain invested in. It's impossible to please everybody, but we hope there's a book or character that you look forward to keeping up with. The success of this company will be largely dictated by our ability to keep the customer interested and satisfied. We are not oblivious to this. Respect goes both ways, and we will honor our side of the deal. An equal partnership, imagine that. Canon and continuity. Our aspirations extend far beyond having a couple characters or series. A vast universe that is ever expanding is what we hope to accomplish. This is something that has long been intriguing about modern American comic books, but it has become a lost art. Preach, son. The Rippaverse will fill this void. This means that every single book you buy will always matter. Awesome. Sounds good to me. If retcons are to exist, they will only be used in the classic sense of introducing new information. Oh, thank God. We want every book that you buy to always matter. Those stories happened. There will be no lazy time travel to change histories or events. And how prophetic that in the past couple of years there's just been an endless deluge of multiverse movies. Some of them good, as like Everything Everywhere All at Once and Spider-Man No Way Home, and the rest of them which have been pretty bad. There will be no cheap multiverses that have altered versions of the same character. If you own a book, you own a part of the history, and it's our mission to keep it that way. That's pretty awesome. Now here's also what's kind of interesting too. What seems like DC and James Gunn are trying to replicate. This concept will remain true regardless of the medium. Should the character appear in officialized animation or live action, the depictions need to be as accurate to the characters as realistically possible. Your favorite characters will always be recognizable. Kind of cool. A comprehensive timeline. Because we value canon and continuity, it's important that you're able to follow the timeline as these characters grow. This will especially be helpful for those of you that will become customers years after our founding. I've raised my hand, I volunteer as tribute here. With that being said, we promise to try to keep reboots to a minimum. If this means that a series is on its 100th issue or volume, so be it. But this isn't a reason to feel overwhelmed. Not only will there be plenty of opportunities to purchase anthologies that combine key stories, there will also be an available official chronological timeline that is constantly updated by our company. Not every story will be told in chronological order, so we'll always make sure to make it easy as possible to keep up as the universe grows. Man, this is just so cool. It's just so cool. And again, I harped on this sometime last year when I did my ISOM #1 review, which definitely go back and check that out. I'm actually genuinely excited for this. I can't believe I'm really saying this, because as someone who did not grow up on comics at all, and actually who just got into them recently, and you can see probably behind me, I have a small stack of stuff that I really like. But it's kind of normie stuff. It's stuff that everybody likes. I like the stuff with Watchmen, V for Vendetta. What else do I got here? Batman Long Halloween. Let's see. I have the Mighty Marvel Masterworks of Doctor Strange, which are delightfully hilarious. I also have some. And a big stack of Daredevil stuff. And it's good Daredevil stuff. Because thanks to Razorfist for his recommendations. But it just goes to show that if you're trying to make your own story, if you're trying to create your own world, you can be successful. You can do this. Now, let's be perfectly honest. Eric July put $100,000 of his own money into making this book, into founding this company. Period. That was his own money. Everything else that he got was everything else that he brought in through pre-orders. It's just gravy. He just had no idea how many books he needed to print, and so as a result, he got $3.7 million in pre-orders, and instead of buy himself a nice G-Wagon and ride up into the sunset, he put it all back into the business. And he has hired a lot of people that you may recognize, like say Gabe El-Taib. And what's so awesome, and Chuck Dixon actually, and he also announced a couple writers for Yaira, the girl in blue, the blonde-haired girl in blue that you may or may not. That I don't really know their names, but he's hired a pair of twins to write her book. And Chuck Dixon is writing Alpha Corps, the green guys that you see up here. They're kind of like the superhero police force. Now, we know nothing about either of these characters. We really don't. So the next round of Rippaverse content is going to be pretty awesome. This is ISOM number 2. We also have Yaira coming up, which is, again, the girl in blue. We also have Alpha Corps coming up, written by Chuck Dixon. And I think Chuck Dixon also announced that he is signed on for another Rippaverse project, which is... oh wait, he hasn't said. I forgot. He hasn't said. So my theory is that he's already writing for Alpha Corps. My theory he's gonna be writing for the heroes that I'm personally looking forward to meeting are Norfolka. So it seems like they are an extraterrestrial powered beings that are also moonlight as a metal band. And one of the singers seems to have some kind of mind control, maybe a way to program some kind of elation or happiness into the people that he's performing for. So that could be really cool to look into. He's also got a couple that appear that seem like they're empaths. They read people's minds and read people's intentions. That could be really awesome too. So I mean, the powers and the people that he set up could be really cool. And I'm definitely excited for Norfolka because I mean the characters look very incredibly diverse in terms of personality and skill set and appearance. But also, I'm just a sucker for superhero teams. I love the X-Men, even though I'm not really all that familiar with them. I love the idea that there's a bunch of disparate elements all coming together to form one team. I love that. I think Daredevil is really the only superhero I read that deals exclusively with him, because I love the Avengers films, and I would rather watch an Avengers film or Captain America: Civil War than I would an individual superhero film. This is kind of how I am, because I like watching characters bounce off each other, especially ones that are different superpowered, asking big questions. Unfortunately, we got a decade of that in Marvel and the MCU, and now we don't have anything else about that either. Everybody sucks. Every Marvel movie from here on out has just been pretty terrible. But that's kind of the point, though. They've all let down the customer in one way or another because they feel entitled to your money, because they've been around forever. They've been raking in the dough for decades. I mean, the MCU especially has been around for over 13 years. Began with Iron Man, ended with Avengers Endgame, and everyone was very excited to see what they did after that, and then it's just been a complete disappointment ever since. And people are kind of tired of the political pandering, and kind of tired of the political messaging that has just been seeping into every aspect of our lives. And I know a lot of my videos have been kind of politically bent, but just because these companies have brought them in, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about politics when I'm talking about comic books or movies or TV shows or video games or anything like that. I don't want to talk about larger cultural issues. But unfortunately, these companies have brought in cultural issues into our entertainment spaces. And that is something that cannot and should not be borne anymore. We should not be putting up with it. And one thing I kind of love about Eric July's approach, he doesn't like, from what I've seen, he's not going to entertain overly sexualized, overly profane, and gore for gore's sake in his books. So guys, this would be suitable for kids. If you have kids, this is something you can pass down to them that would be suitable for them. I mean, again, you look. I would not necessarily recommend it. If you're a good parent, just read these books before you hand it down to your kids, because some of them may not be appropriate for may not be too appropriate for your younger children. There could be some scary imagery in there. I recall when I was a kid, that would be the only thing that parents would have to worry about, is scary imagery that might give their children nightmares. An amiable thing to avoid, to be sure. But now we live in a world that does not allow for that. We live in a world where the concerns and the fear is palpable, because now we live in a world where entertainment companies are infusing their books with subversive messaging and political pandering that is just chock full of identity politics, chock full of victimhood, chock full of things that you would not want your kids reading. But they are counting on you not policing what your kids read, and therefore being given a gateway into your children's minds and maybe indoctrinate them. I'm sorry to say, this is not a conspiracy theory anymore. They have said that they're doing this. So it's wonderful to see a company like the Rippaverse, who has no interest in that at all. They do not want political messaging. There may be some themes might come across, because Eric July I think he's an anarcho-capitalist. Completely agree. He believes in the free market, and so maybe some issues of liberty might come up. The things that comic books used to subtly incorporate into their books. Because let's be perfectly honest, politically based storytelling has always been around. But in the case of Captain America: Winter Soldier, it used slightly a political bent to ask bigger questions. We can't really trust DC and Marvel to do that anymore, because they have to hammer their messaging all over your head until you yield and say, okay, I give up, uncle. There's no place for that in entertainment. There just isn't. And so if you don't gatekeep your hobbies, you're going to get that. And Eric July has already set up safeguards to make sure that doesn't happen. And just in closing, I want to remind you all of just how this is a monumental achievement anyway. The fact that he's gotten $1 million, this is gravy, that he's going to be putting back into his company. $3.7 million that he earned in the first campaign, and whatever he makes here, he's going to be putting back in the company, making part-time writers and illustrators and all that into full-time positions. He's going to be putting it all back into his company. And it's kind of wonderful to see a man be so passionate about his creation and try as much as he can to ensure that the company is successful. And I love that. But let's be perfectly honest, y'all. If any of y'all are on Twitter, which I do, even though it's been fixed significantly since Elon Musk took it over, man, there are some real morons out there who are trying to make claims about this whole campaign, this whole company of Eric July in general, and people like me who are fans, trying to claim that we are lying and that we are misrepresenting everything. I even heard some idiots try to claim that, when did you get ISOM #1? Like, yeah, there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have books in hand who paid for them, calling Eric July a grifter, which Eric July is probably the worst grifter I've ever seen, because he's actually providing goods that people pay for. How dare he? What they're mad at is not Eric July. He's just a lightning rod drawing in all the crazy. They're mad at the fact that they don't have a centralized hub to control anymore and to gatekeep. This is what Razorfist calls the Iron Age of media, where everything is becoming decentralized. We don't have the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, whatever. This is the Iron Age. It's people, individuals, just scraping by in the dirt and the muck to make something worth having, to make something worthwhile. And we're seeing so many campaigns out there that are asking for help to bring them up. And actually, Razorfist himself is a comic that I already backed, and I am so excited for that, because I love George Oggs, I love the artist, and I love I think the man can write. There have been so many campaigns out there who are willing to take risks and to take the plunge and put their money where their mouth is and create something amazing. In fact, I'm in the process right now of writing a short story that I've been mulling about in my head for a very long time, and I haven't written in years. But this stuff here, The efforts of the Iron Age of media have have lit a fire under me to do something great. As Eric July always says, today is a day to be great. So do not listen to the detractors. Do not listen to anyone who wants to tell you that you're not good enough to compete with the big dogs. Lest the whole reason this channel started was to take a dump on Rings of Power. And remember, and always remember, J.R.R. Tolkien is one of the most celebrated authors in the entire English language. He started out, the whole reason that Middle-earth existed because he wrote fan fiction. He decided to take something that he wasn't getting from the broader academia entertainment complex, from the world that wasn't giving him. He created his own. He created his own mythology, his language, his world for people to inhabit. And for him, I felt like it was more of a what's the word I'm looking for? A catharsis for him, more than it was an enjoyment for the rest of the world, because it didn't take off immediately, but then it did in the 70s. It didn't take off immediately. It took a few years. It took in the late 60s, early 70s when Tolkien really started revving up. And he grew resentful of the hippies co-opting his Lord of the Rings books, because it's not what it was about, but he still was around to see it become a smashing success. Tolkien is one of just a long line of many creators who have made something amazing because they weren't being given it by other people. And that is probably the best advice I can offer to anybody else. Make something good. Get people to trust you, trust your vision, trust your focus. Deliver on the product. Finish it. Finish your script. Finish your TV show. Finish your web series, your comic book, your novel, your short story. Keep an eye out for mine. Just finish it. Write it and finish it. And if people want it, if you've marketed yourself well, if you've written something worth having, people will pay for it. If you haven't written something worth having, and it's a failure, do it again. Try something else. Tweak it. Make it better. Make it great, and do not let the gatekeepers these big corporations that take their orders from the top down, don't let them decide what you do with your vision. Don't let them decide what you do with your time and your creative energy. Just make it. Just make it. Let the free market decide. And if you can't make it, back it. Back it. It may not always be worth your money. Because I do have my criticisms of this book. Of course. I probably will have for ISOM 2, 3, 4, Alpha Core, all of that. I will have my criticisms of every book to come by, because nothing's perfect. But that's fine. Don't let perfect get in the way of don't let perfection get in the way of, what's the word? I don't care. Just getting it done. So anyway, y'all, definitely go to Rippaverse.com, back this book, and let's review it together. Let's talk about it together. Let's create a fandom that cannot be infiltrated by activists. Well, thanks so much for watching, y'all. Have a great rest of your day. Like, share, subscribe, and comment, and all that. I'll see you later.